I'm Paul Robbins, gunner's mate, 3rd class. Enlisted January 1943, and I got on the boot camp. They gave me an old 30-06, and the ammunition wasn't good. And the World War I stuff wasn't good at all. I just walked around there, never done anything. Just walked around some buildings and stuff, but had to do something, you know, to occupy my time. I got on the boot camp. I went to Philadelphia Navy Yard, and I arrived there April 10th, 1943. And at that time, I did some guard duty around the Navy Yard there. And then I went aboard the ship May 23rd, I commissioned in May 23rd, 1943. I also graduated from high school in the same day. My mother got the diploma and I got the ship. But then I went aboard the ship. I didn't know what to think. I don't know how am I going to get around in this thing. But usually we stayed in our own area. Usually I was on the port side there in Mount 10, and we were just down in that area. When I joined the Navy, I was 17, but I almost 18. I had another month. I've been 18. But went aboard New Jersey and 18 years old. Oh, another thing, 90% of the men on this draft that went aboard New Jersey were 18, 19, and 20. 90%, and then the rest of them trained us. My gun captain was on the Oklahoma and the Northampton. Then they come aboard the New Jersey. Oh, and we got the Northampton's Navy band. They had a band board. We got that too. We had our shakedown. We went to Trinidad, and we come back, and then we went to Casco Bay, and down to Norfolk, and us in Iowa, headed for the Pacific Ocean. We went through the Panama Canal. The Iowa went first, and then we went second, and we didn't have any room to spare. After we got out of the canal, they had PT boats making runs at us, which was quite a deal then. As we went across the Pacific, I was a pollywog. I became a shellback. January 13th, 1944. We went to, and there the sea was like glass. No waves or nothing. It was so bright, so bad that it hurt your eyes to look at it. Anyway, we went into Funafuti, the Lease Islands. We pulled in one afternoon, and that night we left for the Marshall Islands. We went to, we didn't do any shooting then, but other tasks, we were in a task force of 4 task groups, but the other task group did some shooting of Japanese planes, but we didn't. But anyway, we entered into Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, and then we finally ended up in Majuro Atoll. That's where we operated out of. Admiral Spruance come aboard. The Indianapolis tied aboard our ship, and Admiral Spruance come aboard in his flag. And it wasn't long after that we went around Truck Island. Our Mount 10 was the anti-aircraft mount, and the other 4 mounts were for surface targets. But they didn't tell our mount, the director didn't tell our mount that they had a surface target. So we had proximity shells to kill people on dockside, and they were top secret. Then we went back to Majuro Atoll, and then we went back. We did some bombarding at Panapi with the 16-inch shells there. Then we went back to Major Atoll and got ready to head for Saipan. We left Saipan for Saipan when D-Day was over in Europe. And at Saipan, the New Jersey shot down Betty going through our task force there. It was just about 30, 20 millimeter shells that knocked the plane down. I'll tell you, that when the 5-inch started firing at the planes, and then the 40 millimeters, you know they're getting close, and when the 20s, you know they're real close. But they never hit us. We shot down some plane, I don't know, about 20, I think, altogether. Oh, then we went through the Mariana Turkey shoot. It's called the Battle of Philippine Sea. And we had quite a bunch of ships congregated together there in case the Japanese come through. But we heard on the PA system that there were 60 planes at 90 miles, and at 30 minutes later we was in condition 3. They shot them all down. This is the only time that I know that the Americans turned on the searchlights when they sent planes to meet the Japanese fleet. When coming back, they turned on, Admiral Mitchell had them turn on the searchlights so they could find their carriers. We went back to Saipan, and I'm going to tell you a little story about the admirals. Admirals didn't have it so good either, but they had we had big flyers over there at Saipan. We'd come in there, and we'd see bodies floating out to sea, but the admirals had Admiral Spencer's book. They said they had cake and ice cream, which was premium, and they had it netted, but the big flies, they couldn't keep them out. They didn't care what kind of rank or rate you had. Later went to Guam, then we was detached and went to Pearl Harbor to pick up Admiral Halsey, and we picked him up in this flag. Then we went to Manus Island. There's where the Mount Hood ammunition ship blew up there. Only four crew members survived. They were mailmen on the beach off of the Mount Hood. We didn't have to be there, but that happened before we did. We picked up holes and we started hitting the Philippines. Oh, then we went to Formosa and hit it. The Japanese lit us up with flares, our task group, but they run into another task group. We have 4 task groups, so they run into the task group, and the task group took a couple hits, and I wanted to see what flares looked like. And I looked out. I was in a 5-inch handling room where I passed up the ammunition. It was daylight. That was quite a sight. And the battle letting off, we were supposed to watch the San Bernardino Straits or block the San Bernardino Straits. But the Japanese sent a decoy carriers down and we took the bait. And later on we detached Sydney, Iowa, and 4 cruisers and destroyers, and we went down the San Bernardino Straits. And the cruisers and the destroyers, they sunk a Japanese destroyer, which went back and picked up their survivors. And so Admiral Holden said there was Japanese in the water. So I'm in the handling room, I was handling room captain. I wanted to see it, so I went out and looked. And I estimated there were at least 400 or 500 Japanese in the water. And Admiral Holden said he was going to send landing craft to pick them up. I never could find out whether they got picked up or not. let's see where we're at now. Oh, we lost the carrier Princeton, and then almost lost the cruiser with it too. What happened? The Princeton got hit by a kamikaze, and the Birmingham went to pour water on the Princeton, and the ammunition exploded on the Princeton and killed. They said around 250 on the Birmingham, and that many wounded. Then back when we went to the USNM atoll. Then we hit the Japanese in the Philippines quite a bit, and then we went to hit them when MacArthur wanted air cover at Mindoro. They invaded Mindoro there, and we were supposed to be the air cover. We hit the typhoon, but we had 3 weather stations that sent messages how the typhoon or how the weather was. Weathermen didn't get them all opened up, and because we're coded, and it took 24 hours, and a typhoon don't wait. So anyway, we ended up with us. First of all, in the typhoon, we tried to refuel the destroyer Spence. The reason I know there was a couple of guys hollering back and forth. One guy on the Spence and one guy on the Jersey. They were, I think, high school shipmates, and the line busted twice, or they broke. We didn't get them refueled. Anyway, that's the soil Spence that took off, and we ended up. We lost 3 destroyers, 790 men, and about 150 planes, because they broke loose from the moorings on the planes, and they had the domino effect. There were several survivors, and the survivors were picked up mostly by the DE, and the way the DE done it, circled around and picked up the survivors, and Admiral Hall, they wanted all the ships to come back, and they stayed another 24 hours. They disregarded because they were still picking up survivors. And this, the DE captain was a USNM man, did a regular Navy. All they applauded him. After the typhoon, we went in a day early, and Admiral Nimitz come aboard, but we took 1 shell because they were shooting at a sleeve into the atoll, and I told us to take cover, but 1 shell went through the deck and hit a guy's leg, and but he didn't lose it. But then went to South China Sea. We sunk a lot of ships in the South China Sea. The carriers did, or the carrier planes. Then my brother was on a Flint, and he saw the Ticonderoga get hit by kamikazes. He was the Flint. So he said the Flint was out to in the chow line, and then we went to USNM atoll, Iwo Jima. The first time the Task Force 38 hit Japan for the first time while they were invading Iwo Jima, and one night it was so bright out, moonlight, that we made smoke around there. Went back to USNM atoll, and we got hit by the carrier Randolph. This was March 11th, 1944. Got hit by a kamikaze. I think the Japanese picked up a couple planes from Yap. Another plane hit an island. And then we used to go over to Mog Island for recreation. 2 hot beers or two Coke, 2 hot Coke. At that time they didn't have ice. And a lot of people got judge fights over there. And then we left for Okinawa. We hit Japan again, and at one time I seen 5 ships burning, I think, or at least been hit in our task force. And I think one of them was Ben Franklin, the carrier. We shot down different planes, and back then they sent the destroyers out to warn us when a bunch of Japanese planes. Sometimes the Japanese would hit the destroyer instead of us. Oh, we were supposed to bombard Okinawa, but they called it off. But in the meantime, the destroyer Franks hit our anchor and killed most of the officers on the Franks. The Franks was a destroyer, and I never knew it. Anyway, President Roosevelt died when we headed back to the States then, and we headed for Bremerton for overhaul. And we've been there 16 months in the April of, well, we finally got into Bremerton. And D-Day over in Europe, and they wouldn't let us go on Liberty because they're afraid they might tear up the town. And was in Bremerton, the Enterprise come in with a kamikaze, and the Bunker Hill, it took 2 hits. They had to be repaired, and we had 20 days leave, and come back from leave, was ready to go back out. We knew we was going to get close to the Japanese islands because the 40 and 20 millimeters we had, and they were shooting at the rocks on the island and off of California. Went to Pearl Harbor, and then we left there, and then we give Wake Island a call. We give them a blast, and they fired back at us. They acknowledged us, I guess. Anyway, the atomic bomb, which I didn't know anything about, was dropped around then. We went to Inuitak Atoll, and then we went to Guam. We pulled into Guam, and somebody come along and threw my hat overboard. I said, "What'd you do that for?" And he said, "Well, the war's over." A day later, we picked up Admiral Spunce, and we left for the Philippines. We turned on the lights. Before we always traveled in the dark, no lights. There we lit up like a city, and we went to the San Bernardino streets in the daytime, and we went in the middle of Manila Bay, and there's a lot of Japanese ships there, all sunken. That was after the war. I did go over in the Philippines then. They told us not to buy any booze or eat anything over there. And we didn't, or at least I didn't. But some of the British sailors come over there. An hour later, the shore patrol threw them on the bank. It was hot, and they were ready to beat. And one of our guys, he got some of the booze, and he went for a swim. He jumped overboard, and we picked him up, of course. And they got court-martialed too. Another thing way back then, when we used to refuel from the tankers, a big wave come over and picked a guy up, took them over the lifeguard, and they never saw so many life rafts go over. Life jackets go over to save them. We had a destroyer following us, but they didn't bring the man back until a week later. They refueled from somebody else. Oh, we used to refuel from tankers too, about every third day. When we were in port, we just maintained the gun in port, and out to sea, we manned the gun, and in port we didn't man the gun. But out to sea, we had a skeleton crew on, let's say the 48, like a 48 watch, and the 8 to 12. And then a midnight watch. We had beans for breakfast on Wednesday and Saturday, and on Friday we had fish and lemon pie. I can remember that. And Sunday night we had bologna and cheese, but they didn't call it bologna. I won't tell you what they call it. We had bread and it had weevils in it, bugs, and they tried and sift it. The officers, they didn't get it sifted all out either. In the daytime, we picked the bugs out, and at night, we'd eat the bread without worrying about more protein. We got to first place in Japan. It was, I think, September 16th, 45. Was called Wakayama, and some of our prisoners of war over there were going home in escort carriers, and we gave them a big hooray going home. And then we left there and went to Tokyo Bay, and we was there 5 months in Tokyo Bay. And I went home at Portland, San Francisco, February 10th, 1946, and I got off the ship there, 1946. And I got discharged at Great Lakes, Illinois, 9 days later.